In this episode of Moviewallas, we talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Back to Black. It's time for Moviewallas. Hi, this is Joe.
Hi, it's Rashmi.
And Yazdi as well.
Moviewallas is your weekly dose of film reviews, movie news, and general banter in theatres, on DVD, online streaming, or in the back of an airplane. If you love the movies, this show is for you.
And you.
I got it right today. I think last time Rashmi commented on me tripping over my words.
You did a little bit.
I was tired then.
Yeah.
I was tired. But yes, I'm not tired today because it's a holiday, Memorial Day weekend.
Yay!
I wish we could just have 3-day weekends.
I know.
Like all the time.
They're doing that in Europe. Many companies are doing that.
I've heard 4-day work week.
Yeah.
10 days a week. 10 hours a week. 10 hours a day, sorry.
Why are we
Which most of us do anyway.
Anyways.
Yeah, that's true. Well, you should be careful what you wish for.
I know.
You never know. Goodness, we have a couple of movies to talk about and another podcast that we're going to record today.
Yes.
So there should be kind of fairly back-to-back episodes.
Not back to black.
Not back to black. Da-da-da.
Back to back.
I guess we're kind of on a curfew. We can't be too bantery today because we have so much to talk about.
Yes. Well, we can't banter because we've got something to do after the show.
That plus a lot to talk about. We've got 4 movies.
Yes, correct.
So let's jump in.
Why don't we start then? So
we're not going to mention the mulberries.
We should talk about mulberries for sure.
Okay, we can show what a mulberry is and how for those who are watching. I've never seen one.
Hold up a mulberry.
Although I've sung the song "Here We Go Round the Mulberry Bush."
So mulberries are berries. They look like little worms, but they are kind of a cross between a raspberry and a blackberry.
Yeah, I would say.
And they are extremely fragile, and they don't have a shelf life more than 48 hours, so you'll never find them at your grocery store, but they do grow in the Southern California climate. And if you want some, unless you have a friend who grows them, you can surreptitiously go on Facebook
sounds like Yazdi's been doing a black market trade in mulberries.
That is my love for mulberries that I drove up to.
They're very good.
They're very, very good. I drove up to like a farm in Escondido where I could have been killed and chopped up into little bits, but I paid $6.
Why would you be chopped up into little bits on a farm?
That's how all horror movies begin.
Yes.
But anyway, yes, I exchanged for $6 for this pound of mulberries, and they are heaven.
They're very good.
They're really good.
delicious.
I don't think I've had one before.
Me neither.
I thought
Never had one.
But I'm thinking of loganberries. Have you had
loganberries?
Loganberries?
Yes, I've had loganberries.
Yeah.
I think when I thought of mulberries, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So they're very good. And they're not too sweet.
No, they're delicious.
They're not too sweet. They are sweet. They have that raspberry taste, and they also have a very earthy, soily taste, which I adore.
Yeah, I like it.
And they're not too tart.
No.
They're just right. They're like Cinderella berries.
Goldilocks.
Yes.
Goldilocks, yes, not Cinderella. And we have an abundance of fruit.
Yes, and mangoes. Yes,
we have tasty mangoes.
Yes.
These mangoes look so good. So these aren't the Alfonsos that you often speak of.
Correct. These are the one level lower. These are the saffron or the Kesar mangoes. The Alfonsos...
Joe, did you see Joe's face when he put one in his mouth?
That's like sweeter than sugar.
Yeah, that's so good.
This is why.
Yeah.
But it's really good. Oh my
So
goodness
good.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
Sorry, you
Yazdi,
were
go
saying.
ahead. And we've also got ginger nuts.
And we also have ginger nuts that you brought, McVitie's from the UK no less, and it's got ginger and nuts. What can be better?
I think it's just ginger biscuits. I don't think
They're just ginger cookies.
Nuts.
They just call them ginger nuts.
Okay.
No, have you had these before?
I've had ginger ones, but not ginger nuts. But I guess it means nuts like you're crazy for them.
Yes.
Like you're nuts for ginger.
Maybe.
Yes.
So it
And
does-
you
it does
are,
actually
you
say-
are, you
am
do
a
like
ginger.
ginger.
Pass me that.
Yes.
It does say ginger nuts.
Yes.
The fiery one.
And I am a nut for ginger, yes.
These are so good. I can eat Like I could demolish that entire packet.
Really?
In
I don't know. I
session.
never know I like them until I have one, and then I'm like, nah, they're okay.
So good. Crack that packet, Yasdi. Crack that packet.
Crack it open, yeah.
My niece and nephew were here from London, and they asked me what they should bring, and I said, bring me some Earl Grey from Fortnum.
Oh yes, from Fortnum and Mason. Yes.
And knowing my love for ginger, they also got some ginger biscuits, and they got ginger root from Fortnum and Mason, and I had a piece, and I just
the stem ginger biscuit.
No, it's actual stem ginger.
What?
Covered in, I'll bring some for you. Covered, it's like little rocks of ginger. It's just heaven. It's like your mouth is on fire, but it's so good.
That sounds awesome.
I was trying elegantly to eat the mulberry because you can't just take it off the stalk. You have to kind of like put it in your mouth and then take the stalk out.
Yeah. Like a toothpick. It's like berries attached to a toothpick.
Correct.
There is a mulberry technique.
Yeah, there must be.
Clearly. Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm starting with 2. Look. Oh no! I've touched 3 now, so 3 it will be.
Oh darn!
Just one for me.
I touched 2.
Okay, I will just take one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
let's go.
So, should we do our Netflix recommendation?
So,
yes,
let's jump into our section. I can't find anything to watch on video on demand.
Yasdi, go.
I will go. So. Everybody knows about my love of romantic comedies, and I think a good one is hard to come by. And I think romantic comedies are not as easy as people think they are, and there's lots of crap ones.
I think they're very difficult.
They're very difficult because
a good one is very difficult.
Because what else is left to do? You've seen every iteration thereof. So last evening, I was tired and I was looking around, and I bumped into this movie, which I realized was a sleeper hit earlier this year, and it's called Anyone But You. And it has Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, and it's directed by Will Gluck. Will Gluck also did Easy A, and he did the Peter Rabbit movies. So he's a pretty accomplished director, and I love this movie. I'm not proud of it, but I love this movie. It's beautiful people in a beautiful location. And they're going through, of course, you know what's going to happen. Of course, you know in the first 2 minutes exactly how it's going to play out. But it's such a joy. The whole movie is set in Australia, in Sydney. And it's cute, and it's funny, and it's a little raunchy. It's an R-rated romantic comedy, so don't watch it with your kids.
Okay. Or your parents.
Or your parents, exactly. But it's so much fun. Dermot Mulroney is in it. Brian Heiser, I think. Brian, he was one of the Australian actors on a TV show a while back. It's very, very glitzy and polished. The whole movie has a gleam of, it's been scrubbed. And it's great. I loved it.
And I heard that the 2 main characters, Sydney Sweeney and
Glenn Powell,
pretended to really be a couple to kind of get some... generate some buzz about the movie.
Right. Which is ironic because that's the plot of the movie.
That
they have to pretend to be a couple. They actually hate each other. Of course they do.
There you go.
Yeah, but it's, those 2 have incredible chemistry, by the way, and they're really game.
Really?
Yeah.
Because he's from All of Us, right? The TV series All of Us?
He was in the Top Gun Maverick movie.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember him now.
Yeah,
okay.
And he's going to be in a movie called Hitman, which comes out next week on Netflix from Richard Linklater.
Oh,
Richard Linklater.
Who's been very quiet.
Who's been very quiet, and it's supposed to be terrific, so I can't wait to watch the next Glenn Powell movie.
And she's obviously from Euphoria. People will know her from Euphoria.
Yeah, from Euphoria. She was also on... what was that? The show
White Lotus, the original.
The first season, she was also in that. Yeah.
Yes.
She's also in a movie called The Warrior, which is very good and is on Amazon Prime.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll shut up.
Okay, good.
Rashmi, what do you have?
Sorry, that's on Netflix?
That's on Netflix. Anyone But You.
Okay, so I know I've recommended Bridgerton, the first season, but I finally got around to binge watching season 2, and season 2 was so good that I immediately went into season 3, which is actually a half series. So my pick is Bridgerton on Netflix, which just gets better and better and better, which I didn't think it could. I'm in love with this series. My bosoms are heaving. Yes. Bridgerton on Netflix.
Now, you keep telling me that it wouldn't be my cup of tea.
Maybe
because I've asked you a couple of times. Should I catch? Because I see your you come back from a trip and I binged Bridgerton.
Yes.
And I'm like, Should I watch this? And you're like, I'm not sure it's for you.
It feels a little chick flicky, if I'm honest, Joe, which is
Okay.
why I always tell you to stay away from it. You might like it, but it's very...
It doesn't look like my kind of thing. It looks
no,
like
and
the
you
kind of thing
didn't
that would annoy me.
you didn't stick around for that other one that I loved on HBO that I also recommended, The Gilded Age.
No.
So it's set in the 1800s. What I love about Bridgerton is it's race agnostic.
It's revisionist. Yeah.
It's revisionist, right? And I love the fact that they do this really interesting thing where they have these beautiful dance sequences because they're all going to balls. The costumes are fantastic, but at the balls they play orchestral setups of
Contemporary
pops,
music.
of contemporary pop songs. So, they'll be dancing to Lady Gaga, but it's set to like orchestral music. But it's very Mills and Boons. So in the UK, we had a series, I think in most British colonies, right?
Right, in
there were
India,
this series of books called Mills and Boons, and they had people like Fabio holding, a young damsel on the front. They're very Mills and Boons-ish, but they're great stories, and they talk about race, and not necessarily race, they talk about, society and the role of women and what's proper and manners and what society expects you to be, and if you want to be part of a wealth set versus you're a working class person. So it's got some great ideas in it. It's just set with this undertone of and he pushed her up against her carriage and
Ravaged her.
and ravaged her. It's very I love it though. It's fantastic.
Cool.
I like
I think you should watch one.
Yeah. Well, no, it doesn't seem the kind of thing I would.
Like Yazdi, I think you would like it.
I would like it.
I think you would like
I
it.
did like Chevalier last year. It feels like it's going to be like Chevalier.
I think
Yeah.
yeah. Chevalier was great, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that it's very race agnostic. Like
Yeah.
there are African American, like the Queen apparently is
Indian
African
people, yeah.
Indian.
The whole second
lead,
series.
The second series, the lead is an Indian actor. So good on them.
Yeah.
Okay, my
What's your pick?
is
Something boring after the two of ours.
no. My pick. my pick destroys.
Interstellar. Oh, I'm sorry. I cannot let a Christopher Nolan reference go
know.
by. Sorry, go on. Yes.
My pick destroys your picks.
Oh,
It absolutely it wipes the floor. It picks
Really?
up. It picks up your picks
Pray tell.
and stomps all over them. It's not a pick at all. It's the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles.
no cheating. Cheating.
Which what are you doing sitting at home picking movies to stream when there is a wonderful film festival in your backyard coming up at the end of June?
if you live in
So,
Southern California.
If you live in Southern California, which we do, and you are around on June 27th through 30th, get your behind up to Los Angeles to go and see the Indian Film Festival of LA. Now,
and we did persuade some of our friends to come last time.
We've been friends
Jeannie and
of
Prashant.
We've been friends of IFFLA for a few years now, and I say friends of IFFLA very early on in Moviewallas. When we were kind of not established, we had never covered a film festival, and we were just covering. I don't think we'd even had like maybe
We're cutting our teeth.
our press credentials at that point to see screenings. We applied because we had the podcast. We'd been doing it for a few months, and we wanted to see if we could get into a film festival. And this film festival popped up, and we applied, and we got in. And I was somewhat skeptical. I thought, what's this Indian film festival? I can't imagine a whole 5-day film festival of singing, dancing, Bollywood stuff. I mean, it's not that the classic Bollywood stuff. I don't enjoy it. It's just I find it tiresome. I can't imagine a whole film festival dedicated to it. What a revelation! What an absolute revelation of a film festival this was, because it exposed me, and I say me in particular because I think Yazdi, you had a much greater appreciation for kind of South Asian cinema than I did,
Rashmi, yeah.
as did Rashmi. But me, it broke me away from the cliche that South Asian cinema has to be. People running around, singing songs, hiding behind trees, popping out, and all of these kind of romance stuff that we've gone to know so well and cliche. So, Indian Film Festival Los Angeles is coming up again. It's May 27th. I'll put the podcast out as quickly as I can because if you're around, go and buy passes. Support this wonderful film festival.
It's at a great location. It's usually at the Regal Cinema in LA by Staples Center. All the films are in one place. You can literally jump from one film to another.
Yeah.
It's very compact. They usually have great guests. We've done kind of the round table audience with many great musicians and filmmakers and producers. Really good content. Very contemporary material that will blow your mind. Not just because it's of Indian origin, but just really great movie that stands up on its own. And I think, didn't something just play at Cannes, Yazdi?
Yes, so the movie...
which is the opening night.
Yeah, so it's called All the Light We Can See, something like that. So the Cannes Film Festival just wrapped last week.
Right.
And it made history because for the first time in 30 years, a female Indian director was picked in competition for her movie. And that movie landed up winning the second top prize.
Oh, wow.
So the Palme d'Or was won by Sean Baker's film. And then the next in line, which is the Grand Prix, was won by this Indian filmmaker for All We Imagine Is Light.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be one of the opening movies at IFFLA this year.
So
I mean, IFFLA's, sorry to go on about this, but IFFLA's greatest strength has always been their incredible curation of films. Like,
yes.
you can just blindly go and sit in any theater.
Cinema, yeah.
And you have a 9 out of 10 chance, maybe a 99 out of 100 chance that it's going to be remarkable. Like we saw a documentary last year about the making of Loom.
Oh, gosh, yeah, which was
The
so
Golden
good.
Thread, which that's the last thing I want to see, a documentary on making textiles. And it just blew my mind. I mean, we had a whole full hour conversation with these anyway, I'd go so far as to say, even if you're not based in Southern California, if you can get a quick ticket, and if you really want to see the Indian filmmakers face to face, do Q&As, watch these movies, do it. It's like the greatest opportunity.
And I cannot emphasize enough that this, this go without prejudice, because again, I think if you think, Indian films are all going to be, like Bahubali or some of those big epics, it's yes, Indian cinema has those kinds of things, but it's kind of like pigeonholing Hollywood for only making Marvel movies, right? There is a much broader spectrum of Indian cinema. If you don't know what to go see, pick a shorts program. I guarantee that one of those shorts will be possibly among the better film experiences that you'll have this year. And, I don't want to overly hype it and leave people disappointed, but I think I can stand on safe ground by saying what I've just said, which is just pick a shorts program and go see it. You will get your money's worth. So, again, if you're in the Los Angeles area, we'll try and talk more about IFFLA as it's coming up. We will definitely try and attend again this year, schedules permitting. Wonderful, wonderful film festival. So, just to kind of quickly wrap up, streaming picks, Yazdi, you had? Anyone
But You, which I forgot to mention, is actually a modern retelling of Much Ado About Nothing. It's actually based on the Shakespeare play, but it's a very modern retelling set in Australia. It's lovely. On Netflix.
You had?
Bridgerton on Netflix.
And I had Get Your Butt Off Your Couch. Don't watch video on demand. Go and see the Indian Film Festival of Los Angeles from the 27th through the 30th of June. All right. Time is not our friend today, so let's jump into our reviews then of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes and Back to Black. Let's go. Who's telling us about Apes?
Yazdi.
So I will tell you about Apes. So in 1968, the original Planet of the Apes was released with Charlton Heston. It's become a cult classic. And then that was kind of rebooted. And there have been 4 movies in the Planet of the Apes series which have been made so far. And wouldn't we know it, we have a 5th one, which is just 5th in the new series, which was just released, which is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. The movie is directed by Wes Ball, whose previous credits include that he was the director for all the Maze Runner movies. So remember the movie Maze Runner, which actually I like them. Maze Runner.
Okay, yeah, with Shailene Woodley.
Yes, with Shailene.
Yeah.
The Maze Runner, Scotch Trials, and The Death Cure. So this is directed by him. And to be honest, I have frankly been a little exhausted with the Planet of the Apes because they keep throwing these out.
Yeah.
And so I missed the screening for this movie and I wasn't too bothered, but I have been very surprised at the reviews for this. Like Rotten Tomatoes, they're like 80-90%. The movie stars Owen Teague, Freya Allen, and Kevin Durant. They're all fairly new actors. And the writers are Josh Friedman, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver. And the one-liner is that many years after the reign of Caesar, and if you remember Caesar, very famously voiced by the guy who did Golem.
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, thank you. A young ape goes on a journey that will lead him to question everything he's been taught about the past and make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, 2 hours and 25 minutes. What do you guys think of that film?
I didn't love this one. I think production-wise and cinematography-wise, it's a delight for your eyes. It is it's a how-to in terms of visual effects, but the story wasn't enough to carry it as a whole movie, and it certainly didn't need 2 hours and 25 minutes to tell you not much. Meh.
Sure. Yeah, 2 hours and 25 minutes. That's 25 minutes too long. I think there's very obvious tightening that is present when you look at a movie like this and its pacing. And I think it falls into that trap. And, I'm not going to take credit for this thought. I heard it on a different podcast discussing the movie, but it feels like it's foreshadowing a trilogy, and therefore they've got the trilogy mapped out, and so
this is the first one of that.
I mean, it very obviously ends in a cliffhanger, so we know that there's more to come.
Okay.
And so I think they take their time building the story and building the characters in a way that they may not have done if they knew that they weren't making 3 films. So
right.
It kind of the pacing's a little bit off, and it's one of those movies where an hour and a half into it, you will look at your watch, right? You'll kind of be like, what's for dinner, kind of thing. But I sound very critical of it. It actually works. The CG is impeccable.
Yeah, beautiful.
And honestly, within moments, the suspension of disbelief was in full force. My brain just accepted this universe and these apes walking around. It looks fantastic from kind of start to finish. It's exactly the kind of story you expect it to be. It's an action movie. The fact that it's an ape in this universe, that very little connection to the previous one. I mean, there is this kind of legend of this ape that came before called Caesar, but it doesn't need to be set in that universe, right? Other than it provides the excuse to continue the franchise. So
yeah, I mean, Joe, I think I like the idea it's trying to explore around how legendary Caesar is and how, his ideas get polluted. It's kind of like religion in a way. I kind of drew parallels to how people interpret religion.
Absolutely.
And how, man ultimately invents religion. And so you have these two factions now that they both think they're interpreting the word of Caesar in their own way. And it's not necessarily good versus evil. It's just two...
Well, one is clearly exploiting it for his own benefit.
Yeah,
sure.
So
we have a dictator.
We have a dictator. Yeah. And then you have this group of apes that seem to live in harmony with each other and with the rest of the earth and nature. So I really like that idea that it was starting to explore, but it certainly didn't need all that time, and it's not a strong enough story that has a very good beginning, middle, and end. And then there is this thing about, humans and the apes' interaction with humans, and to what purpose are the humans useful in this, 300 years later. But again, none of those ideas seem to come to fruition very well in my mind. So it felt a little dull.
It wasn't dull for me. I think it was just poorly paced.
Yeah.
And like I say, I think the 90-minute cut of this version of this movie would be could be a very punchy little tale.
Yeah.
Right? Instead, what we have is these very long, kind of drawn out, seemingly. It's lore building, right? It's trying to build this universe out again as a setup for the sequel. And again, the end of the movie, I hope this isn't too spoilery, but the end of the movie clearly sets us up for the middle story of a trilogy, the big battle, right? Everyone knows that, in movies 1, 2, and 3, the second one is where all of the action kind of happens, right? Everything kind of collides and comes together. And so this is very much kind of placing the dominoes for that type of event. Yeah.
Okay.
But, it doesn't need to be a long review. I think this is completely inoffensive. It's a great movie to watch with the family on a Friday night. It's an action movie. It's the hero's journey. The characters are delightful. I really liked all of I love the new protagonist, Noah. He's a very... you can get behind him and root for him, right? I constantly had that feeling of like, I want him to prevail over all of this, and he will, but it'll be a struggle because it's the classic hero's journey, and he has to do the thing that's hardest for him to do in order to prevail against the bad guy. All of the kind of classic movie beats, right? So it doesn't feel very original, but it's entertaining nonetheless. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
It was really middle of the road for me. Just the production and again the CGI is very, very good. I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay. Moving on then to our second review, which is Back to Black.
Yep. So this is the life and music of Amy Winehouse through the journey of adolescence to adulthood and the creation of one of the best-selling albums of our time. This is a narrative movie directed by Sam Taylor Johnson. It's written by Matt Greenhalgh, and it stars Marissa Abella, which a lot has been made about, her portrayal of Amy, Eddie Marsan, and Jack O'Connell, amongst many others. And we all saw this one. So Yazdi, what did you think of Back to Black? Now, and remind me, are you a fan of Amy Winehouse music?
Yeah, I like it. I don't adore it. I'm not a groupie. I'm not like a...
Not a fanboy.
Not a fanboy. But Back to Black, the album is just a classic.
Yeah.
Since you brought that up, it just made number 7 on Apple's top 100
of all time.
Yeah.
Albums of all time.
Apple's.
So Apple. Yeah. I know. But Apple's a big player in the music industry right now. So, to be on number 7 on a list of 100 greatest albums. This album's well loved. I liked it at the time. I did buy it.
Yeah. Okay. What did you think, Yazdi?
So I have many thoughts on this one, but I came out of the movie, I gave my reaction, and I was happy about it, and I came home, and then I went to Rotten Tomatoes. This movie already released in the UK before it came here.
Correct.
And it's been just ravaged. I mean, the movie has like, 20% tomato?
I think it's like 30 something.
I actually gasped when we were preparing for the podcast because I don't normally look at reviews before seeing the movie. I saw 34%. I gasped. So
this movie is directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, who's done a lot of movies. She did 13. She did, she's married to
Aaron Taylor Johnson.
And, I think she's a pretty capable filmmaker. I think this movie is always going to be in the shadow of the excellent documentary called Amy, which came out and won the Oscar that year for Best Documentary. Which
2015.
2015, which was directed by Asif Kapadia. So it's always in the shadow of that. I think for somebody who has not seen the documentary or somebody who's very young who doesn't know much about Amy, I think this is actually a pretty good film. Is everything Disney-fied? Yes. Does it kind of glean over certain things? Yes. For me, I think it's a pretty serviceable biopic. I was very impressed by the lead performance, but even more so when I found out that all the music that you hear in the movie is actually her singing it. It's not, even though...
Oh, really?
Even though they did not... Even though they got full support from Amy Winehouse's estate, they made the decision to have her re-record all of it. So she sung those songs herself. So I give a lot of credit to that. So I'm kind of surprised at how much the movie has been like ravaged by the public and by the press. I do think the movie sets a very interesting, we'll talk about this more, very interesting ethical question about who gets to tell somebody's story. So, and we can come back to that.
Joe.
I actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I think it does sugarcoat a lot of Amy's troubles, and she's a tragic character in so many ways, right? This movie is ostensibly kind of a love story about her and her tragic relationships that she had and how that led to her demise. And so, it sugarcoats a lot of the facts, and I think I recognized that in the moment, that I'm like, this isn't the story that we saw in Amy, with a lot of behind the scenes kind of footage. It rubbed all the edges off her character. So as a biopic that's maybe trying to be an accurate portrayal of Amy, I think it falls short. But that doesn't mean to say that the movie wasn't very enjoyable. And so, I mean, I guess I can see what the tone here of the criticism, which is saying that, it puts her up on a pedestal. It's somewhat lazy in terms of trying to go deep into who she was. But we already have a documentary that will answer those questions for you. They didn't set out to tell that story. If it was backed by her estate, they did want to preserve the Amy that presumably they remember, the girl in the family who had the talent for singing, and became a star and then fell prey to the pitfalls of fortune and fame. So that's a story that got told here. But as a film, it really worked for me. I was in it for the entire running time.
Me too.
Wow. Then I watched a different movie. So
you watched the one everybody else did.
I am going to ravage the movie like the rest of the people on Rotten Tomatoes. Here's why. It's because the documentary Amy from 2015 was so incredible, and considering that Amy Winehouse wasn't even alive when that documentary was put together, and that was from archival footage, it told a more full story. This biopic chose to tell moments in time that didn't really string together, because I felt like it was trying to tell the love story between Blake and Amy, but it didn't tell it fully. So you kind of got half of this love story, which I think if you had just gone in full force and just told the story of Blake and Amy, like a story of Blake and a story of Amy, and then them coming together, and why it was such a kind of raw magnetism that ultimately upended her life, that would have actually been the better movie, because we already had the documentary, right, telling her life. But this chose to kind of tell some elements of her personality, some elements of the love story, and then some of her family. I thought the family pieces were really interesting. And I learned a little bit more about, I didn't realize the importance of her grandmother, say. That was beautiful to kind of have that story, and how much influence the grandmother played on her dress style and her hairstyle and who she wanted to be. So that was interesting. But overall, it didn't quite keep my attention, because it kept jumping from what it felt tonally inconsistent, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yeah. And again, I think, I think it set out to do something different from what I think the fans, well, not the fans, but it set out to do something very different to the documentary. And I think it's fan service in a way. I mean, we were there. We were an audience screening.
Yes, good point, Joe.
People
Good for reminding me. Yeah,
there's a lot of people who hold Amy Winehouse very dear. As kind
there were
of
many Amy's in the audience.
Many Amy's. They were all dressed up with the
kind
the
of bouffant,
the hair,
the roses
the hair
in
the
the hair,
and the tattoos and all of this kind of thing. Because I think she's a tragic character, but she was very influential. I mean, I remember working when she was at her peak with a couple of people in their 20s who she was like everything to them. Like, she was cool, she was edgy, she spoke her mind, and I think they represented all of those kind of positive things here well. So I don't think they set out to necessarily tell us the truth. It was their Amy that they wanted. It was
so, this is what I wanted to say. I think what people remember as the story, for any story, depends on who wrote the story.
Sure.
And I think it's very obvious this one has been, blessed by the Amy Winehouse estate, and they want to tell a kind, benevolent story. So like you said, the things have been dulled, like all the sharp edges have been dulled. And I think the movie loses the opportunity to make two commentaries. One is that she was like, even as a teenager, she was a genius, right? She was writing stuff. It just came out of her. And I remember watching the documentary and being like, this writing just came out of her. She didn't even have to struggle. Like, she was writing her lyrics. She couldn't, and the movie never, I know it's very difficult in a movie to, show somebody writing, but there was they completely missed out on that aspect, that as much of a good singer as she was, I think it was how raw her writing was, right? So they missed out on telling the story of her genius. And I think what happened was, towards the very end, she lost the skill to write, and that to her was the biggest setback than anything else. And then the second piece is, I think the reason why, I mean, not to take away from her music, she's genius. She will be among the top music stars of all time. But the reason her story is so tragic was because she was so self-destructive. She was like on this path to it was going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
And I think the documentary made such a good job of showing how do you deal with somebody who is just spiraling down. And her dad tried her best, and at least the documentary implied that it was her husband who kind of enabled her with the drug use and with all of this, and kind of shielded her from the rest of the world who were trying to do an intervention. And in order to grant dignity to that story, they completely bypass her death in the movie, right?
Yeah.
So you are kind of choosing not to tell that part of the story at all. Is that a good thing? I guess if you're her father or her sister or her niece, then that's a good thing. You don't want to wallow in the misery of it all. But it leaves her story incomplete, because it tells you about how utterly selfish and greedy addiction can be. It can sap a living 20-some-year-old genius from their true fate. And there's a lost opportunity there. So that's why I think people are really pissed about that.
Yeah. It just, again, I think, given the documentary was so genius, it's hard not to compare your viewing experience to that documentary. But it was dull in comparison. Like, it took the spark away for me. Yeah.
I think maybe I was completely spellbound by Marissa Abella's performance.
Oh, great performance.
I think, one of the things that happens very early on in the movie is she begins to shine as Amy, the talent, the personality. I don't know how accurate a portrayal it is of Amy. I get the sense that Amy Winehouse was spikier and edgier than this particular portrayal, and perhaps not as nice, because this Amy in the family scenes is like, she's
lovable,
a lovely girl from London. It's like she's, she loves her nan, and she goes on walks in the park with her grandmother. But I think the acting role here, she's just like star presence. Like, there's something about her performance that elevates her above the writing, and it's not that she's doing an Amy impersonation. It's that there's something deeper that she kind of brings forward in the screen. So I think from the beginning of the movie, I was just like mesmerized by just how effectively she was doing the job that she was.
This is the first line on my review. 10 minutes into the film, I believe these characters.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, and I literally have the title and no words written in my book for the whole movie. I had nothing to write about it. But I will say, credit where credit's due. Marissa Abella as Amy and Eddie Marsan as Blake. Fantastic performances.
Jack O'Connell as Blake.
Oh, is it Jack O'Connell? I thought Eddie Marsan is her father. Yeah. Again, Jack O'Connell as Blake was fantastic. But again, the story I wanted to see, if you were going to commit, was the love story between Blake and Amy, because here's an example of two people who cannot stay away from one another, and yet they are the worst for each other. That is a really good story. So I can wrap this one up. Really, for me, this was really dull. I would say 5 out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
6 out of 10 for me, and I think that's a stingy 6. I think if you know nothing about Amy, and if you want to get like a like a pressy version of her life, who she was, what she did, what were her songs, I think this is not so bad. And again, I'm really high on the performance. And once I found out that she actually sung the songs, it's not easy to sing.
More.
No, that's not
I'm
easy
really
to
impressed.
sing, yeah.
But I think it's a lost opportunity on several fronts, and clearly Blake comes off looking really good in this particular version of the movie.
He does.
Yeah,
and he was actually the I think the reason for her dying. Right. He was the catalyst for her bad behavior.
Do you believe the documentary or the movie? The documentary, because it's based on actual footage. And that movie, the documentary made it very clear that he kind of shielded her from her family towards the end.
Well, he was so insecure.
Yeah, and he went down and he took her down with her.
Correct.
Whereas in this movie, he comes off looking like a knight and who just happened to be doing some drugs on the side.
Yeah.
So, again, it's very fascinating about how do you tell a story, who gets to tell it, all of that. 6 out of 10, maybe a 6.5.
No. 6 out of 10.
Joe.
So again, my jaw dropped when I saw the reviews here. It's 34% for the critics, 86% for the audience. I'm with the audience this time. I'm going to quote Jill B here, who is the first random audience reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, I was engrossed the whole time. The acting was excellent. I don't understand the negative reviews. To each his own. I guess I enjoyed it. Very much tragic story. I like this. This movie worked as a movie for me, so I'm going to give it an 8.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I really liked it. I thought it was engrossing. It was engaging.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap it up for today. I should say this at the beginning of the podcast, but if we are still playing around with YouTube, we're not getting lots of views, so view us on YouTube. Look at our beautiful shining faces here. Yes, please do. And if you do check out the YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. I think it helps with the algorithm. We would like to grow our audience that way if we can. So do that. Until our next podcast, I think it's time for us to go because we're going to record another one that I'm very excited to talk about. I Saw the TV Glow and Furiosa. Too many movies, too little time. Goodbye from me.
And me.
And me as well.